Vischa Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. For those of you who are just joining us now, today's class will be on the occasion of the day, which is Vasant Pancami, also known as the first day of the spring season. This is on the 5th day of the waxing moon. It's a very festive occasion that happens every year around this time. It's called the first day of spring in India and the Northern Hemisphere. And it's very much centered around the worship of Radha and Krishna. There are many activities, both material and spiritual, pious and spiritual, that happen on this particular day. For instance, there are many pujas and worship for fertility, for women, for cows, for for family members, for crops. It is a day of introducing auspiciousness in agriculture also. In the temples, the deities, especially in Vrindavan, are dressed in yellow or yellow-green, you'll see. And many of the ladies who perform the different functions in the festivals also put on the garments of yellow like that, or white, either one. It's a festival day, and of course on this day there are many important personalities who appeared and disappeared on this day. There are we have just a listing. There's Pundarik Vidyanidhi, Raghunandana Kaur, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Vishnu Priya all appeared on this day. Very august assembly of appearance days. And we also have Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's disappearance and Saraswati Puja. Saraswati Puja is conducted not for the goddess Saraswati, who is the wife of Lord Brahma. It's for Lakshmi Devi, who expands herself in one of her forms as Saraswati, the goddess of learning. So it's the spiritual expansion and not the demigoddess expansion, or not the demigod. The demigoddess expansion is an expansion of Srimati Lakshmi Devi. She is also known as Saraswati, but Lakshmi has many expansions, and one she expands in her form as Saraswati, the goddess of learning, in the spiritual realm, not in the material realm. We have Raghunath Das Goswami's appearance day. And Raghunath Das Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. He is known as renunciation personified. He appeared in a family in West Bengal. As a young boy, he grew up. His father and his uncle were both employees of the government in Jagannath Puri, and they were also very pious. Their names were Jagadish and Haranya Majumandara, and he was the son of Haranya Majumandara. And at an early age, he happened to come in contact with the devotees of Lord Caitanya. And he immediately developed an attraction to join the devotees of Lord Caitanya. But because his parents were very concerned that he was actually running away from home without any responsibility, and they were quite wealthy, they were also prestigious, they were respected within the society. Of course, his father and uncle had a very important job. They were tax collectors in the area, and their wealth was extraordinary. They had such wealth, it was on the level of Lord Indra in the dimensions, that they were known as billionaires. If you were to compare them to people of today, they would be considered to be billionaires. And the only son was Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami was, because he was the only son, he grew up in a very wealthy family, and he had everything, but he was not satisfied with that. We can understand that those who are a little bit above the bodily conception of life understand that material arrangements, whether it's wealth or physical comforts or opportunities for advancement in societies, are not something that they find satisfying at all, because they understand that the goal of life is to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So although, and we see this, although he was very highly prestigious and had anything he ever wanted materially and more, he was from a loving family. The family was very pious. Soon as he came in contact with the devotees of Lord Caitanya, he rejected all of that and wanted to join. At one point, he met Lord Caitanya. Lord Caitanya said, no, you go back home, you take care of your parents. And when the time comes, then you may return. And so, a little bit saddened, but at the same time, he left and went back home. His parents were concerned that he had gone away, and therefore they were really overprotective. In fact, because of their wealth, they hired 11 guards to make sure that he doesn't leave his very comfortable abode. At that time, his parents also decided to get him married, and they arranged the marriage for a very, very highly qualified, very, very chaste and very, very physically attractive lady. She had all good qualities. Now he was married, but still nothing was as important to him as becoming a follower of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So it describes that as time was going on, he was always planning to run away, and every time he would run away, the guards would grab him and bring him back. And this was going on after many times. His parents were becoming a little concerned what to do. And so his mother, she made a statement to her husband, his father, and she said, we should take ropes and tie him up. And his father, he was kind of like, I don't know, you might say mortified or insulted by that statement. He said, what will ropes do? He has more wealth than the king of Indra. He has a wife that is as beautiful as the goddess of fortune. So what will ordinary ropes do to keep him here? So he rejected that whole idea. So one time, after so many years, his anxiety to achieve the association of Lord Caitanya was becoming so intense that he could not bear it anymore. So somehow or other, Krishna made the arrangement for him. And what happened was one of the priests, Yadunandana, one particular person who was supposed to do the puja that day didn't show up. His name was Balaram. And so Yadunandana was concerned that the puja for the family deity was not going on. So he called Raghunath and said, please make arrangements so worship can go on. And therefore, he took Raghunath away from the protectors of his guards and gave him some time in the temple. And so while he was in the temple, and then of course, Yadunandana somehow or other was looking for someone to replace Balaram, he took the opportunity to leave. And this time he would always, normally he would always go through the trails in the forest. He would go through the regular trails heading towards Jagannath Puri to be with the Lord Caitanya. But this time he decided, if I'm going to go that way, they're going to find me again. So he cut a path through the forest, which was very difficult. He made his own way. He created his own path. And therefore, when it was known that he was gone, the guards immediately went out to find him. But as hard as they could not find him, because now he had gone in another route. And finally, after a couple of days of traveling, he was hardly eating anything. He stopped at the house of one milkman, got a little bit of milk, and then he continued on. Finally, he arrived at Jagannath Puri. When he arrived at Jagannath Puri, he was received by Swarup Damodar Goswami, who notified Lord Caitanya that, hey, Raghunath has come. Lord Caitanya said, well, okay, then you should maintain him, keep him there, and he will be known as Raghunath of Sarup. And so finally, the guards caught up and came to Jagannath Puri, and they asked, they wanted to bring him back, but he refused to go back. So when his parents found out, they wanted to do something to maintain him. So the guards would bring him finances from his parents so he could live. But he would take the finances and he would invite Lord Caitanya for prasadam. He would pay for all the prasadam, and then he would invite the Lord. And he did this. And Lord Caitanya was kind of happy about this, that he was actually doing some service. He wasn't taking the money for himself. He was using it in devotional service. And this went on for some time, but finally he was thinking, why should I be dependent on the money coming from my family? That means I'm still attached to that connection there. So he wanted to cut off all connections from his family members. So he decided not to accept any more money. And then after some time, Lord Caitanya said to Swarup Damodar Goswami, he's not inviting me anymore. How is he living? How is he maintaining? Well, now Swarup Damodar Goswami informs Lord Caitanya that he's going outside of the Jagannath temple, and he's standing there in the area where all people are begging, and he is begging this way and that way to get a little bit of alms, and so he can maintain himself. Lord Caitanya said, that is very good. But after some time, Raghunath started to think, I'm like a prostitute. When people are passing, I'm thinking, this person gave to me yesterday, will he give to me today? And so in this way, his mind was feeling disturbed because he was thinking in terms of duplicity. Will this person serve me today? Will this person give something today? And so he decided to give that up. And then after some time, Lord Caitanya again inquired from Swarup Damodar, how is Raghunath? How is he living? How is he doing? Well, he's no longer going to beg, because he's also thinking you know, that here I am in front of the Jagannath temple, and I am contaminating all the priests who are coming this way and that way. So he left that area and went to a special place around the side of the Jagannath temple towards the southern side, where there is a large wall, and the prashadam that is not distributed or sold of Jagannath is taken, and it's considered to be old and not edible, and it's thrown over the wall along with the leaf plates and leaf cups into an area where there's a group of cows called the Trilunga cows, and these cows go through that prashadam and they find what they want and they eat it. So Raghunath joined the cows there, and he was going through the old Jagannath Prashadam looking for pieces of rice, and he would take the pieces of rice and he would wash them off, put a little bit of salt on them, and that's what he would eat. And he would eat nothing else. When this was this was communicated to Lord Caitanya said, "Oh, really? I want to go see Raghunath." So immediately he came to where Raghunath, and Raghunath was there amongst the cows, picking through the prashadam that was no longer sellable or edible. And Lord Caitanya looked at him and said, "Raghunath, what are you doing? You're having a feast and you're not inviting me." And he ran towards Raghunath, grabbed what Raghunath was about to eat, and took it himself and started to eat it. When Sri Damodar Goswami saw what Lord Caitanya was doing, he became overwhelmed with anxiety, and he held Lord Caitanya back from doing it again because he was about to do it again. And he said, "My dear Lord, this is not fit for you. You shouldn't be eating this." Lord Caitanya responded in the most amazing way, which was full of bhakti. He said, "I have tasted so many sabjis and so many sweets and so many curries and so many savories, but what Raghunath Das Goswami is eating here is a grand feast." What was he saying? Was he making some eulogy or some joke? No, what he was saying was what he was tasting, the bhakti that Raghunath Goswami was displaying as in his mood of complete renunciation. He had no desire other than to serve the Lord, and he simply depended in the most simplest way to maintain his body. Of course, we should not think we can imitate that. It's not a level of devotion that is easily attainable. But when one reaches pure spiritual consciousness, one becomes completely free from any tendency to maintain the body. They simply depend on Krishna. If Krishna maintains me, fine. If he doesn't maintain me, fine. In other words, they don't even think about their own maintenance. All that they think about is how to serve the Lord. So Lord Caitanya glorified the renunciation of Raghunath Das Goswami. Along with that, he would offer every day without fail 1,000 obeisances to the deity in the temple, Lord Jagannath, and 1,000 obeisances to the Vaishnavas. It says that his austerities were like lines in the rock, meaning his austerities were so deep that they could not be erased by anyone. He was so fixed in performing these austerities. And later on, of course, he went on to write so many beautiful books. in glorification of pure devotional service. He is Rati Manjari. He, in his spiritual body, he is the personal assistant of Srimati Radharani. He takes care of Radharani's personal needs in the spiritual world. And there's a beautiful treatise written by Raghunath Das Goswami mentioning and at the same time glorifying Srimati Radharani, mentioning his service to Srimati Radharani. I think it's something Sudha Niti, Prema Sudha Niti, something like that. I can't remember the actual treatise that he wrote. Maybe someone can remember it and post it on the chat. It's so beautiful. And of course, he's written other books, the Pearl Story, which is a kind of little bit of a humorous story about Krishna, the gopis, and Krishna growing pearls, just like people grow vegetables. That is a very sweet little story and very deep in love between Krishna and the gopis. So his writings are on a very high platform of spontaneous loving devotion between Radha and Krishna Krishna and the Vraja damsels. Okay, that's a little bit about the life of Raghunath Das Goswami. We can also talk about Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Pundarik Vidyanidhi is an incarnation of King Vrishabhanu, the father of Srimati Radharani. He appeared in Navadvip area. There's a beautiful story when Pundarik Vidyanidhi was coming to visit the Navadvip area. No, actually Jagannath Puri, it was in Jagannath Puri. Lord Caitanya would call out, Father, Father, Father. And devotees would be saying, why is he calling Father? Father, Father, but the Lord would not give any answer. But at one point, he told Gadadhar Pandit, you should meet Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And Gadadhar Pandit didn't even know who he was. So Lord Chaitanya told Mukunda, he called his servant Mukunda, his assistant, he said, you take him, and he just directed him towards the place where Pundarik Vidyanidhi was staying. Now, Pundarik Vidyanidhi was quite lavish in the way he dressed and the way he performed his activities. He would dress in very highly expensive silken garments. He would comb his hair and put various kinds of scents and perfumes in his hair. He would smear his body with sandalwood pulp. He would chew betel nut. In other words, he looked like a gross materialist who was quite wealthy. So when they went, Pundarik Vidyanidhi greeted them both. And then Gadadhar, when he saw Pundarik Vidyanidhi, his mind became a little puzzled and at the same time disturbed. Lord Chaitanya has told me that this is a great personality. He looks like an ordinary gross materialist. And his apartment is so lavishly furnished, so nicely. How can he be a great soul? So he didn't say anything, but he was thinking like that. Mukunda could understand the mind of Gadadhar, and so he chanted one verse from the Bhagavatam, Aho Bhakiyam Kalastala Kutam. It describes how merciful Lord Krishna is, that although this demon Putana, she was a witch and she came to kill Krishna, but Krishna didn't accept her in that way. He accepted her as his mother. Of course, being a demon, he killed her by taking the breast milk that she offered to him. At the same time, she had smeared her breast with with a deadly poison to kill Krishna, but Krishna sucked out the poison and sucked out her life at the same time. And then it's explained that Krishna gave her a benediction almost on the same level as his mother Yasoda. She attained a very high state of liberation. When that verse was chanted, this verse is mentioned to Vidura by Maitreya Muni. It's mentioned, it's third canto, second chapter, verse number 23 in the Bhagavatam. This quotation from this verse by Mukunda, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, when he heard that verse, he went mad in love for Krishna, thinking how wonderful Krishna is. This demon came to kill him, and yet he gave her liberation almost on the level of his own mother. So thinking about the mercy of Krishna, he went into ecstasy, and that ecstasy turned into a 6-hour display of him going into various ecstatic symptoms. He was tearing his clothes. He was throwing things around. His servants came to try to hold him down. They couldn't do that. He was breaking everything in the room. And Gadadhar, when he was seeing what was happening, then he understood, oh, my Lord, I'm thinking this person is a gross materialist, but actually he is such a great devotee. So Gadadhar was feeling very repentant in his mind. And after 6 hours, Pundarik Vidyanidhi started to settle down. And then he came to external consciousness. He saw what he had done, and he was feeling a little embarrassed and overwhelmed. At that time, Mukunda immediately spoke up and said, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, Gadadhar Pandit here, he actually has come. And Gadadhar had mentioned to Mukunda during this session that he would actually like to take initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And that's why Lord Caitanya sent him, to meet him and for him to accept the shelter under the lotus feet of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. When Pundarik Vidyanidhi heard that Gadadhar Pandit wanted to become his disciples, he said, oh, how rare it is that a person will have such a disciple as Gadadhar Pandit. I am considered to be such a fortunate person. And immediately he accepted Gadadhar Pandit. Now we understand on the higher levels of this rasa, Pundarik Vidyanidhi is King Vishabhanu and Gadadhar Pandit is Srimati Radharani. So father and daughter were now united again in Gaur Leela as they had been in Krishna Leela. So it's a beautiful pastime like that. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to benedict and to awaken Gadadhar Pandit about the reality of the great devotion of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. We cannot necessarily understand the devotee by their external appearance. To judge a devotee by the external appearance may and will many times create an offense in the mind, and if it's spoken about, it will become a grievous offense. So a devotee is not understood so much by their external appearance, but by their activities in devotional service. Well, that's a very important principle that we should understand. And Prabhupada would also use the opposite to instruct us that many times people externally adopt all of the trimmings and the dressings of a sadhu, but internally they are asadhu. They're materialists, but from the external point of view, they look spiritual. And sometimes, as we see here, from the spiritual point of view, Pundarik Vidyanidhi was highly advanced, but he looked like a gross materialist. So one can never judge by the external appearance. but you can judge as soon as a person speaks. A person will be silent, but as soon as they speak, then you can understand what is the quality of their consciousness. Then we have also Raghunandana Thakur. This is also his appearance day today. Raghunandana Thakur was the son of Mukunda Sarikela. And Mukunda was a doctor, and he had a son named Raghunandana. Now, Mukunda would every day worship the deity before he left for his occupation. But one day he said to his wife, I think we should allow our little Raghunandana to learn to worship the deity. He is now 5 years old, and I think this is the time that we should introduce him. So he instructed his wife, and she told him, her son, what to do. They had a beautiful deity. And she said, you go and you worship Gopinath here. I'm going to give you a tray with a glass of milk and a ladu. This is boga. This is to be offered to the Lord. You take it into the deity room. You place it in front of Gopinath. You sit down on the cushion and you take the bell and you ring the bell and you chant these. And she instructed him what mantras to chant. And then after you chant the mantras, you ask Gopinath, please come and take your food. So he was very eager, very obedient. He went into the deity room with the ladu and the glass of milk, placed it in front of Gopinath, sat down, chanted the mantras. And lo and behold, then he asked, now Gopinath, please take your food. Now, while after he said that, he was expecting the deity to eat everything in front of him. And then he saw that the deity, from his own perspective, was not eating. And he said, Gopinath, you're not eating. I've come with the food from my parents. They will be very unhappy. You're not eating, so please eat. And then he kept begging the deity to eat. Finally, Gopinath spoke to him and said, I'm a deity. I don't eat like you, but I do eat. No, you must eat. So in order to satisfy his servant, the Lord drank all the milk and ate the ladu, and there was nothing left on the tray. So when he came out, his mother said, well, where's the prasadam? So she said, well, he said, you asked me to give it to Gopinath, and Gopinath ate it. Really? Yes. You sure? Yes, he ate it. He didn't want to eat it first, but I was crying, and he finally decided to eat it. So I'm so happy. Mother was a little confused, and she didn't know what to say. So she waited till Mukunda got home, and she told him this whole story. And now they're thinking, So Mukund decides, well, let me think, let me watch. Instead of going to work tomorrow, I'm going to watch and see what happens. So he instructed his wife again the next day, tell our son, take in the ladu and the glass of milk, and I'm going to watch. And so he hid in a place where Raghunandana couldn't see, and he watched, and Raghunandana put the plate before the deity, put the ladu and the milk, and again he went through the whole procedure, and again he asked the Lord to eat. And this time Gopinath ate half the ladu and drank half the cup of milk. And Mukunda saw that. When he saw that, he was amazed. And he could understand the power of his son. And his son was not an ordinary boy, but a great personality who had come into his family. Later on, he told Lord Caitanya about the greatness of his son. And then when Lord Caitanya said to him one time, he said, Mukunda, your son's name is Raghunandana, and you are the father. But I'm asking you a question. Who is the father and who is the son? And Mukunda thought for a moment and said, my dear Lord, what you're asking is very important. Mukunda, Raghunandana, he is my son, and he is my father, and I am his son. He is the father, and I am the son, because the son always learns from the father. Therefore, I am learning from my son, Raghunandana. Raghunandana was a very powerful personality, and there was another great powerful personality called Abhiram Saka. Abhiram Saka was an incarnation of Lord let's see, what was his name? He was one of the cowherd boys. Yeah, he was one of the cowherd boys. He was Subal, and what's his name? Subal, Kinkini. The brother of Radharani. Who's the brother of Radharani? Sridevi, you know that one.
Sridham.
Sridham, thank you. Okay, so Abhiram Saka was Sridham reappearing in Gaur Leela as Abhiram Saka. Now, Abhiram Saka was spiritually powerful. He had joined Lord Chaitanya's entourage, but he was mostly in association with Lord Nityananda, because we understand that Lord Nityananda is the transcendental cowherd boy, and then he is Balaram himself, who has come again, Virjendra Nandana Ye, Sachi Sutta Hoilo Se Balaram Hoilo Nitai. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Virjendra Nandana. He is Krishna himself. That same Krishna who appeared 5,000 years ago in Vrindavan, reappearing now as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Lord Nityananda is the same Balaram. Together they have again performed their pastimes now to liberate the conditioned souls by performing the Sankirtan movement. And so Abhiram Saka was an associate of Lord Nityananda, and he was really powerful. He had a particular whip, and the whip was called Jai Mangala. And if he touched anyone with this whip, they would become a pure devotee. He would give the mercy to, not to everyone, but only to those he wanted to. He would touch them with his whip, and they would become a pure devotee automatically. Imagine having such personalities around. And so he had another quality about him, that he would pay obeisances to shalagrams. And if the shalagram was not a real shalagram, sometimes people would present something that was not a shalagram as a shalagram. And if he paid his obeisances to that form, that shalagram will explode. It would break right in front of everyone. So that was another one of his qualities. But another thing is that if Abhiram Saka paid his obeisances to you, and if you were not a pure devotee, you would immediately die. So when Abhiram Saka heard that Raghunandana had performed such wonderful feats in his home with the deity, he wanted to meet Raghunandana and pay his obeisances to him. The word got out to Mukunda and his wife, and they were frightened. Oh my God, if Abhiram Saka comes and pays his obeisances to our little son, he could die. So they hid him in another village. They moved him from one village to another so he wouldn't. But immediately Abhiram Saka could understand what happened. And so he went to that village, and immediately he found Raghunandana. And when he saw him, he paid his obeisances to him, and the boy continued his life. He was a great pure devotee even at such age. So today is his appearance day, Raghunandana Thakur. He was there during the Kaitari Gram festival, during the time when all the devotees had come together to celebrate Gaur Purnima after 50 years of departure of Lord Caitanya, with Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasa Acharya, and Janavidevi, and many of the great personalities who were still there after the departure of Lord Caitanya. And see, he was personally present in that particular ceremony, which was a grand festival. So today is his appearance day. And last and not least, on today's list of great personalities, of course, there's two more. And one is Vishnu Priya. Today is the appearance day of Sri Vishnu Priya, the wife of Lord Caitanya. When Lord Caitanya took sannyas, he left his young 16-year-old wife, Vishnu Priya, alone to she no longer had a husband, and he took sannyas. She went to live with his mother Sachi, and both of them stayed together. The glory of Vishnu Priya is amazing. If you read Chaitanya Mangala by Lochan Das Thakur, you'll find in that particular delineation the pastime of Lord Chaitanya marrying Vishnu Priya. In that narration, it's a very lengthy and very detailed explanation of the marriage ceremony between Lord Chaitanya and Vishnu Priya. Vishnu Priya was the second wife of Lord Caitanya. He was married to Lakshmi Priya at first, and that was his first wife. But at one time he went traveling in the area which we now know as Bangladesh. And during that time, Lakshmi Priya, who was also an expansion of the goddess of fortune, she was in such separation from Lord Caitanya, she could not bear that separation anymore, and she left her body. And when Lord Caitanya heard that, he was very sad that she had left, but he also knew that she left because of Vipralambha Bhav, one of the highest expressions of loving relationship, separation from the Lord. And so his mother, Sachi Mata, wanted to remarry him, so she arranged for the marriage of Vishnu Priya. When Lord Caitanya left, she was only a 16-year-old girl. And of course, Vedic culture is that when a girl gets married to a person and somehow the husband leaves or the husband dies, she doesn't get remarried. And this is the modern day Kali Yuga feature of life, that, while the husband's no longer here, I got to get another one. No, a chaste woman would never do that. That is Vedic culture. Of course, that is no longer here anymore. And even to speak like that is considered to be highly, questionable. How can anybody even say that, that a woman should remain without the husband, even at a young age? But that's Vedic culture. And so she did, and she lived to the age of 96 years old. It's amazing. But Lord Chaitanya didn't forget her when he left. He commissioned one of his disciples, Vamsidhari, to make a deity of himself and give that deity to Vishnu Priya so she could worship him in that form for the rest of her life in the mood of separation. It's a beautiful deity. It's called Dameshwar Mahadev. It's in the area of Kolhapur in Navadvip area, one of the 9 islands. There's a beautiful temple of Dameshwar Mahadev. Dameshwar. And it's Lord Chaitanya in the most munificent, most merciful form. It says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's deities appear in 3 different forms. We see in our temples, when we go, we see the deity of Lord Chaitanya. His feet are in a dancing mood. His arms are raised up over his head. That is one of the forms. Another form is his feet are in a dancing mood, and one arm is raised over the head and the other one is raised alongside of the body, pointing downward. That is also a dancing mood, but a little bit more of an ecstatic dancing mood. And the third is the form that Lord Chaitanya commissioned for Vamsidhara to carve, to show mercy to his wife, who he had left at an early age. And that is, the arms are extended straight forward, and he's in a beautiful standing pose, and he's smiling. If you get a chance, when you go to India, go to Mayapur and see that deity. It is most beautiful, and when you get the darshan of that deity, you will see a transformation in your consciousness. It's so powerful. Yeah. And so she worshiped that deity. And as an austerity, being a widow now, of course, she was taken care of by Ishana. Ishana was the personal servant of Sachi Mata, and Sachi Mata and Vishnu Priya stayed together until Sachi Mata departed. Vishnu Priya lived to 96 years old. And during that time, she would every day chant the holy names of the Lord. And for every round that she chanted, she would take one grain of rice and put it aside. So that day, depending on how many rounds she chanted, that's how many grains of rice there were. At the end of the day, she would have it cooked, and then she would eat that. That would be her daily food, and she did that the rest of her life. So Vishnu Priya, she is actually the goddess of fortune, one of the internal energies. She's in the mood of, she's called Bhudevi. Bhudevi, the Lakshmi goddess of fortune, has different manifestations of her forms for different functions. She is the goddess of earth. She's called Bhudevi. And then the last and not least of all of the personalities is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Today is his disappearance. All of the other personalities we mentioned, they're all appearance. And this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's disappearance day. He took birth in the year 1586 in the village of Devagram. His parents were from the Rahasena Brahmanas. He had 2 brothers, Ramabhadra and Raghunath. Like that. He is noted for his parents married him at an early age, but he wasn't interested in Grihastha life. He left that. His parents tried to bring him back, but they were unsuccessful. He simply absorbed himself in study of grammar, poetry, rhetoric, and the scriptures. And he's famous for writing tremendous amounts of commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam called Sarati Darshani Tika. Also another one called Sarvata Varsani Tika. He also wrote Alankar Kustuba Subodhini Tika, Ananda Vrindavan Suvartini, Vigdagya Madhava Natakar Tika. He did a lot of Tika. Tikos means a critique or a critical, not a critical, but an explanation of a Shastra to give more understanding of the deeper meanings of that particular Shastra. Also, Sri Krishna Bhavamrita Maha Kavya Swapna Vilas Samrita Kavya Madhurya Kandabini. That is famous. Madhurya Kandabini should be read by all of us. It's a really powerful, very short, but very to the point scripture describing the intricacies of the more subtle aspects of pure devotional service, especially things that we should avoid. Aishwarya Kandambini, Sarvatri Lahiri, Chamakkara Kandrika, Gauranga Lamrita, Ujjwala Nilamani Tika. Ujjwala Nilamani was written by Rupa Goswami. He did a tika on that. Gopal Tapani Tika, that's also one of the works of the Goswamis. And Sri Caitanya Chandamrita Tika, Shanda Gita Chintamani. These are just a few that are mentioned of the works that he performed. And as we read the Srimad Bhagavatam as given to us by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, we find many, especially in the 10th canto, many statements of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur illustrating the more deeper and clearer meanings of Krishna's pastimes in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So he's one of the main commentaries, and Prabhupada would quote him quite a lot. It was he who organized Baladev Vidyabhushan to challenge the Ramanandis. The Ramanandis were an offshoot of the Ramanuja Sampradaya, who found fault with the Gaudiya Vaishnavas for not having a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And because of that criticism, we looked really bad. We didn't have a formal commentary on it, but of course it's understood that Srimad Bhagavatam is the commentary on Vedanta Sutra, but the Ramanandis didn't accept that. And they came to King Govinda Singh, and this was in Jaipur, and they said, you know, these Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they're not bona fide. A bona fide sampradaya has to have a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, otherwise they are not bona fide. So he approached, the devotees. Finally, they wanted to commission Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to come and speak and also write a commentary, but he had reached such an age that he could not travel. So he asked Baladev Vidyabhushan to do the work. Baladev was overwhelmed, thinking, how can I do this? So he went to the temple of Govindaji, the original Govindaji deity, which is now in Jaipur, formerly in Vrindavan. And he prayed at the lotus feet of Govindaji. While he was praying, a garland fell from the neck of the deity, giving confirmation that, yes, you write, and I will dictate. So actually, that commentary was known as Govinda Bhasya. Govinda's speaking. Baladev Vidyabhushan wrote that commentary, but he gives complete credit to the words of the Lord himself, that he spoke that commentary. And that once it was presented to the Ramanandis and the king, everyone accepted that the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya was a bona fide Vaishnava Sampradaya. And in Jaipur, that was very important because it's such a powerful spiritual place where many great personalities congregate and worship the Lord. And there are many, many great scholars there. And so, but again, back to the point that really our commentary on Vedanta Sutra is by Vyasadeva, who has written Srimad Bhagavatam. But in order to satisfy the Ramanandis and others, and especially the king of Jaipur at the time, Baladev wrote that Govinda Bhasya. And it was pure transcendental knowledge coming from the deity of Govindaji himself. So that's a little bit about the life of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So this particular day is a very auspicious and very, very glorious day. Vasant Pancami, the appearances, days of many great souls, disappearance of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. I remember when I was in London in the year 2002, we were together with many, many great personalities, Krishna Kshetra Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Goswami, who else was there? Gauri Prabhu, and a few others, and each of us spoke on that day of this particular leader, and our class went all the way through the Bhagavatam. We took breakfast, and after breakfast, we all came back to complete it, and we were talking all morning. And I spoke on Vishnu Priya. Gauri, I think he spoke on Vishwanath Chakra. No, he spoke on Raghunanda. And Krishna Kshetra talked about Saraswati Puja and others. And Tamal Krishna Goswami spoke on Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and that was an amazing lecture that he gave. And that was only 1 month. That was February 17th. I remember the day clearly. February 17, 2002, and he departed the world. Tamal Krishna Goswami departed the world on March 15th, the following month, just 1 month later in Sridham Mayapur. And that was of course, that was a heartbreak for the entire ISKCON society, that such a great personality left. But for me, it was one of the most, that occasion in London was one of the most memorable events in my life because of the association of so many great souls, especially Tamal Krishna Goswami. So I remember this day, this Vasant Pancami, as a very special day in my life, but it's also a very special day and glorious day, a festival day worldwide, to herald into the beginning of spring and to honor the Lord, who is worshipped in different ways by great personalities on this day. So thank you all for coming to today's lecture. I'm feeling very inspired by the occasion. It's such a glorious day. So we'll stop here and we'll turn it over to Mother Vrinda.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. That was a beautiful session. Got to know. Thank you so much for explaining about our acharyas and Mother Vishnu Priya. Thank you. I request devotees, if there are any questions, comments, realizations, please go ahead.
And one more request is we want everyone to
Turn on the camera.
appear from their unmanifested forms into their manifested forms. Okay. Happy to see Sri Devi and Mother Sudha here smiling and not ready to fall asleep in my class when I give it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. Any questions or comments? Any comments about these great personalities or anything, any memorable events that you've had at Vasant Panchami? I know many of you grew up in India, so I'm sure you have some experience on this particular day with family or with relatives. It's always a festival day.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Harival Namrata, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, I just wanted to ask if a person departs on this day, on the day of Vasant Panchami, so what is their destination, or what is their further journey? How can we understand that?
Have you heard anything about this in terms of the auspiciousness and departing on this day?
No, actually, Maharaj, I'm asking this question because my grandmother, my mother's mother, departed on this day, and she was a very, she was a devotee. So I was just asking.
Well, obviously, it's a very auspicious day. It's not only celebrated by Vaishnavas or people in devotional activities, but people all over India. There are many ceremonies, there's many worships. The farmers worship, they worship the cows, they worship agriculture, they worship the land, they worship family members. It's a very auspicious day. So I think we could rightly say that, when one appears or disappears on a very auspicious day, obviously there is extra mercy connected to that. We'd have to see if there's any statements. There may also be statements in the Shastra about that, about departing on this day. We'd have to see if there's any statements.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but obviously there's always extra mercy on these days.
Okay. Another thing I wanted to share is, I think in our especially community, on Vasant Pancami, there is a group marriage held. So group wedding, because it's an auspicious day. So, a lot of people, those who are not able to, make expense for their wedding or marriages, the community, they give away the things which are given in marriages in charity on this day, and a group wedding is held. So everybody, they those who cannot afford so much, so they just make their registrations, and the big it is like a charity wedding type of thing.
Yes, we know that in India, particularly amongst the general populations, that great amounts of wealth are spent during marriages.
Yes.
This is traditional. This is done on all levels of society. So maybe, but this particular one gives people a chance to perform the ceremony without having the embarrassment of not having enough. And it's nice to have more than one wedding at the same time. That brings the devotees who get married on that day more closer together to each other, and they remember each other in that relationship. And sometimes they celebrate that again. I remember I was at a program in the year 1999, I think it was. It was in Washington, D.C., and Bhakti Tirtha Swami would, in May every year, he would have a 2-day program. One day was marriages and one day was initiations. So it would be a 2-day program. And one of the days would be marriages. And so anybody from that 1-year period, from 1 year to 1 year, who are ready for marriage, they would get married on that day. So I remember that day, I think there was 7 couples that got married that day. So that was nice.
Maharaj, one just clarification, which is from yesterday's class, I wanted to ask if it is all right. It's just a small clarification.
Please. Yeah.
Okay, so this is about Ekadashi. I just heard it from one of the devotee that if by any chance, if it happens that your Ekadashi fast is broken, if by any chance your Ekadashi fast is broken, then Prabhupada has recommended that you can chant 16 more rounds along with your regular 16 rounds. So is that true or not true, Maharaj?
To be honest with you, I've never heard that statement. But if you break an Ekadasi, there is one particular Ekadasi. It comes up in the month of June every year, and it's called Nirjal Ekadasi. Yeah, and so it's a requirement that if you break an Ekadasi anytime during the year, you perform that Nirjal Ekadasi, and the reactions for breaking the Ekadasi are nullified. So that's Prabhupada established that. And of course, it's already been established, but he reestablished it in our society.
Okay.
It's sometimes it's called Bhima Nirjal Ekadasi, also referring to the Pandava Bhima. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Maharaj. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
That's the requirement. That's the requirement.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for the clarification. Hare Krishna.
Do you have any more?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a small question. You mentioned that
Questions, or there's no such thing as small questions or big questions. Questions are questions.
Okay. Yeah, I have a question. That you mentioned that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was calling out Father, Father, and devotees couldn't understand whom he was calling out that. So was he calling out that, addressing that to Pundarik Vidyanidhi?
Because Lord Chaitanya is Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Mahayanya. He is Krishna, but he has the mood, the internal mood of Srimati Radharani. So he appears as a pure devotee to worship himself in that mood in Radharani's love for himself. So he was referring to that mood of ecstasy of being the daughter of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So in the Panchatattva, you find Gadadhar is Radharani and Lord Chaitanya is in the mood of Radharani. So both Radharani is there twice.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj. Yeah.
Thank you. Nice question. Wasn't little.
Whenever I think of Vasant Pancami, I always get excited of seeing the pictures of Mayapur Dham and Vrindavan ISKCON, because they are dressed so beautifully.
Everyone's dressed in yellow.
Yellow.
Or yellow and green together.
Yes.
So it indicates the spring season.
Yes. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So devotees, are there any more questions or comments or realizations? Sudha Mataji has raised hand. Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to your lotus feet. Okay, sorry, it's Is it better now? Because whenever I attend through Chromebook, some reason the microphone is very low, so my voice becomes very low. Is it okay, Guru Maharaj? Is it better?
It's better.
Okay, yeah. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you. Thank you so much for the very nice class. Guru Maharaj, I have a question about like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You mentioned it appeared in 3 different forms, right? Explain. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Guru Maharaj, you explained like in a 3 different forms he appeared. Like so I'm just trying to understand. So those 3 different forms, like it's like applies to different moods of the devotee, like how we
Yeah,
worship
3 different deity forms they are.
3 forms.
Yeah, it's Lord Caitanya dancing, and then the other one is dancing in ecstasy. They're both dancing in ecstasy, but one is more described as an ecstatic dance. You'll see the picture of Lord Chaitanya is like this. One arm is up and one arm is down. Lord Nityananda is on this. Yeah, and then you see mostly like this, and then like this is Dameshwar Mahadev. He's like this. He's giving full mercy. So this was mentioned. Yeah. It was mentioned actually in a lecture by Jayapataka Maharaj. I remember I was there. I was listening to Maharaj speak this.
So those forms, it actually indicates different moods of devotees. Like I don't have deities, like everyone has like a deity. So just trying to understand, like, does it?
It's just the way Lord Chaitanya appears. He appears in these 3 different poses. And then just deity poses.
Okay. So there's no.
It's just shastric, that's all. I mean, he can appear in any pose he wants, but these are the 3 ways that we know that he appears in his deity form.
Okay, very much. Okay. So I thought like any significance is there. So.
Hey, significance is his particular mood that he's exhibiting, that's all. Okay. The deities exhibit a certain mood, and so each one of those poses has a particular description to his mood. That's all.
Okay, very much. Yeah, thank you. I have a question, like it's related to yesterday's class. You were talking about like a 13th item, like one should not accept and could I attend through phone, Guru Maharaj, if my voice is not okay?
I have to listen closely, but I can hear you.
Okay, so this is regarding the 13th item, Guru Maharaj, like you mentioned, like one should not accept an unlimited number of disciples. So in that item, so you mentioned like, about chanting, when we actually, accept initiation, right? So it's not good for disciple and also for the spiritual master if we don't do our prescribed rounds of chanting, 16 rounds. So I'm just trying to understand, like, sometimes like some situations we might not really couldn't finish our 16 rounds. So is it like still offensive or like how?
Well, no, there is a concession that's attached to that particular injunction, and that is that you have to complete your rounds the next day. So for whatever reason, due to circumstance, you were not able to complete 16, then you're allowed the next day to make up the remaining rounds along with the 16 of that day. So that is the concession. Then there's no fault.
Okay.
But 2 things we should add. One, it should not become a habit that we don't finish. These are usually circumstances that we can't avoid. And the second is that it's not that you can just push it off to any day. It has to be done the next day.
Okay. So it should not be purposely, like it's okay if you have any circumstances and if you couldn't finish, so it's not purposely you should not, but if circumstances are like, that you cannot
Yeah.
really, then it's okay.
Maybe you're traveling and you don't have, you're in an airplane or whatever, or all of a sudden you have some guests come over and you have to take care of the guests. You don't have to, and you haven't finished your rounds. I'm just using examples. The idea is not to use that concession as a principle for not finishing your rounds, though. That's the point. You should try to finish your rounds.
Okay. Yes, yeah. So thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much. I have a couple of questions, but
Okay, we have Radha Vinodini. I'm still here, but you won't see me for 5 seconds.
Okay, so Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to you. My question would be connected to yesterday's class, because yesterday you spoke about giving association and receiving association. And sometimes I have this difficulty that in family, I have to repeatedly hear some nonsense things. And I noticed that sometimes I how to say, it has an effect on me. So I don't agree with all what I hear, but somehow unconsciously it goes inside. And what can we do to really reject this kind of association? I mean, not to have effect on us.
Well, the mind is impressionable. Sounds that have a certain emotion attached to it are more indelible on the mind than other sounds. So some things you can just, sometimes you're in the area, something is said and you don't even hear it. And sometimes something is said and you hear it, and it just goes away quickly. But then there's others that stay with you. It depends on what is being said and what the emotion is attached to it. Images are like that also too. Images are even more indelible upon the consciousness. So yeah, this is just the nature of the mind. You have to somehow or other purify your consciousness by bringing in the spiritual thoughts, energies. So what I would do, immediately pick up the beads and start chanting. And then gradually the effects of the impressions that it had on you will start to lessen. And then after some time, it'll be gone. I think that chanting is the most effective way to dissipate all these images, thoughts, and feelings that arise from these negative things.
I understand, and thank you very much. Just one thought came up in me, that you mentioned that those which have when there is a bigger emotional response, then the effect is bigger. So I was wondering, maybe I'm also to blame, that some things which they say make bigger emotional response, so that's why they affect me more, or
Right.
It's not like that. Oh
yeah. Yeah. It's mentioned that the emotion of anger is very, very strong, that those who worship Krishna in that emotion of anger, they have intense connection with Krishna through that emotion. But of course, it's not favorable. But just like Kamsa couldn't stop thinking of Krishna. He couldn't stop, and he was very Krishna conscious, but he was always thinking how to kill Krishna. because he was afraid Krishna was going to kill him. So that's mentioned in that series with Kamsa, that it even appears to be stronger than the emotion of love. It can be. The emotion of anger is very intense.
Mm.
And so, that's one of the reasons why many of these demons, they get such quick liberation when they're killed by Krishna, because they're approaching Krishna with that strong emotion.
Mm. Wow. Okay, so it's also nice to cultivate a bit more sattvic mood, so a bit to be more
that's not
balanced.
it's not for devotees.
I didn't mean about the demons, but about for example, like if I don't become angry when I hear really this nonsense stuff, maybe it also helps a little bit. But of course, I understand that the best is always chanting. That's the greatest help.
What else can you do? You have to either make sure you can distance yourself from any future experience so you don't have to go through it. But if you can't, then take shelter of the holy name. And it'll help purify your consciousness, and it weakens the effects of what you hear. Well, depends on how long it may take, long or short, depending on the impression it made on your mind.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hare
What
Krishna.
can you do? This is the material world. There's so many negative things around us.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
We can be very happy and feel exuberant, and someone says something, and the whole day becomes terrible.
Unfortunately, I really know what you are talking about.
Yeah, it's like that. So you say, you just ruined my whole day. Sri Devi. After Sri Devi, we'll take Brett. And then, yeah.
Please accept my humble obeisance, dear Guru Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for sending me to Mayapur. Today's Vasant Pancami darshan was incredible, amazing, breathtakingly beautiful, absolutely beyond words. I've sent pictures to all the devotees on the WhatsApp and also to Your Holiness. Very, very beautiful darshan. So
Thank
first,
you.
thank you. And my question, Guru Maharaj, is exactly about not chanting our 16 rounds every day. When Sudha Mataji was speaking, I was remembering that when I got COVID, there was a period of, I think, 1 week when I couldn't chant a single round. The early stages, I could still chant, I remember, but when I went down under, I just couldn't chant anything at all. And I remember Samya Datri comforting me. She says, don't worry, don't worry. When you get well, you'll be able to chant. Krishna understands, don't worry. But now I'm thinking, when a devotee has taken a vow to chant and they cannot chant for whatever reason, does Krishna, excuse that? Or when you get well, you remember all those days when you didn't chant and you have to make up for it?
Yeah, you should make up for it. And because if you're in a period of, and this happens to devotees too, happens quite often. Another thing you can do is you can chant in the mind. You can do that when you're sick, sometimes because of lack of energy or the lack of, if you're able to, you can try chanting in your mind, really slow and clear. But if you find that's too hard, then then obviously you have to wait till you're well, where you can again resume your normal chanting and then make up for those rounds.
So that means those 7 days when I didn't chant my rounds, I have to now, of course, I'm well and I can make up for it. So now I must make up for those days when I didn't chant.
You do it in increments if you find it too hard to do it all at once, but you can. I mean, the idea is you're sincere, you want to chant your rounds. The situation didn't allow it. Now you have this backload, so you're thinking how to make up the rounds. And so you make a plan.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Brett, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to you, Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, I was just reflecting on the class you gave, talking about all of our acharyas, and it made me think of the lectures and the classes I listened to and attended yesterday. The theme behind all these acharyas for me gave me like a mood of surrendering, especially from Raghunath Das, with accepting the position that he had to eat the foodstuffs that the cows were eating. Even Lord Caitanya accepting a second wife. This was all just, I feel like these were moments of surrendering. And I was listening to Tamal Krishna Goswami last night, and he was giving a lecture on Bhagavad Gita 4:11, and he was talking about just surrendering and Shravanam Kirtan, listening attentively and knowing when our constitutional position will give us the means to accept Krishna and surrender. And then that sort of, had me thinking on another class I had with Parikshit Prabhuji, and he was speaking on Bhagavad Gita 10:33, speaking about the killer of the ultimate killer being time, and that how it's not wise to bide our time, and that there is this productive anxiety in our Krishna consciousness that helps us move towards surrender, because as Bhakti Maharaj says, I hear quite often, it's always a spiritual bank account. It's always a moving forward process. So Maharaj, like my broad question is just, could you speak more on the mood of surrendering and not biding our time, as they say in Krishna consciousness?
If you understand the principle of bhakti, you understand that bhakti is a continuous consciousness that develops. And in order to develop continuous consciousness in the mood of bhakti, one has to be continuously engaged in devotional service. That is surrender. Surrender is not something you do. It's a mentality you adopt, and then you live that accordingly. So every moment becomes the opportunity to surrender. So you're in a particular situation, you surrender to that by giving your full attention and as much devotion as you can to the execution of the activities. But then again, in a larger sense, in a broader sense, then when you go from activity to activity, in between, there shouldn't be any gaps between what I'm doing and then what I will be doing. It's a continuous consciousness of adapting the mood of surrender at every moment. So the devotee is always thinking how to serve, and if there's no practical idea that comes, chant Hare Krishna every minute. And the Padma Purana makes the statement that even a moment away from devotional service means that one is in a very dangerous position. So devotional service is continuous. It's never to be broken by circumstance. And that we have to practice. In order to get to that stage, we have to practice giving up sense gratification and practicing the process of devotional service. And that comes on the platform of Nishtha, which is the 5th stage of the 9 stages of bhakti, where one is fixed in devotional service and one is always using every moment of their time in some form or another to practice Krishna consciousness. Even if you're walking from place to place, say you're going from your home to the temple. So the process of getting there, it's not like, well, I'm just getting there. No, what is your consciousness while you're traveling? You fill that consciousness in with Krishna. So devotional service is executed in 3 forms: body, mind, words. So we, at any particular given time, we can be in one of those states of consciousness and devotional service. We can be executing activities with our body, mind, or words, or a combination of these 3. That's surrender.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, as you were saying, moving, to surrender is to keep your activities moving from one to the next, and if not, chant Hare Krishna. So is there validity in thinking like our biggest deterrence in constant surrender would just be laziness and just neglectfulness to our health and our mind? Because as you said, it starts with the body, the mind, and then
it's just
the
a condition. It's our conditioned nature. That's all. We're conditioning in one way. Devotional service means to recondition our life and our consciousness towards Krishna. That's all. So in going from the transition from one form of conditioning to another, you're going to sometimes go back and forth until the previous conditioning is completely gone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a process. It's not like we can jump all the way to pure consciousness or even pure absorption in devotional service. It's practice. It's practice, and the things that really help us in our practice is, of course, association with devotees, chanting the holy name, and reading Srila Prabhupada's books. These are the things that really purify the consciousness in the fastest way, more direct way. And if we have material activities we have to do, we don't have to be materially conscious of while we're doing our material activities. We can be Krishna conscious.
We can be in it, but not of it in that moment.
Right.
To say.
Yeah, that's the verse. Be in the world, but not of the world. Practice. And Prabhupada would always emphasize that practice is the process for achieving success, just practice. And then you learn. But one of the ways you can actually really inspire yourself in the practice is to make goals in the practice. Short-term goals, like I want to come to the stage of chanting purely, or I want to be able to read and study this one scripture so I can speak upon it. So you make that a goal. Or I want to learn how to do deity worship, so you make that a goal. So there's different goals that you can perform, that you can set during your process of coming to the stage of pure consciousness, which are usually centered around service. Another goal is I'm not going to speak any nonsense. That's one goal you can make. And so you practice that. Namrata, you're smiling so brightly, it's actually blinding my eyes. You must tell us what you're thinking.
No, Maharaj, it's just that sometimes as devotees, or maybe even in our family, we just keep speaking so much. So Yeah. So this one is a better one, I guess.
It's one of the 6 ways to destroy devotional services, nonsense talk. There's 6 really powerful enemies of devotional service, and one is Rajalpa. Yeah, try to avoid it. Practice if you're not speaking beneficially or something that is required, then remain silent. Silence helps us to think more. When we're silent, we can think, and when we can think, we can also understand deeper.
Makes me think, Maharaj, like you said in the beginning of the class, there's so many holes to fill, and if we're just mindlessly talking and talking, we're just pushing out of one hole and not, attentively hearing through another.
Yeah, but the process is never, you're never defeated by the process. You just need to practice patience.
Mm-hmm.
Enthusiasm, Rupa Goswami explains, enthusiasm, determination, and patience are the 3 characteristics for the execution of devotional service. If you're enthusiastic, you also have to be patient. And the enthusiasm should not overshadow that element of patience, because Krishna works accordingly. He works according to his timetable. Okay, so I hope everyone likes the new time, because I do. And it was nice to see so many devotees on there today. So this will be the time for now, even it'll line ourselves up with the Thursday groups. So everything will be 1 o'clock now. I'm 1 o'clock my time, 12 o'clock UK time. And yeah, so thank you very much. And if you get a chance, if you can visit the temple today and see the deities, because they're usually dressed in the colors, which is always very pleasant to watch. And if you can't, then Sri Devi has sent the Mayapur Darshan to the conference. Yeah. And
Not
those
to
who
the
are
conference, Guru Maharaj. I sent it on the WhatsApp group. Should I send it to the also?
If you want to, yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah.
Okay.
Send it to the
Thanks.
conference, and then and devotees who are not on the conference, they can get it from devotees who are on the conference. Sukavaha, you have a question.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to your lotus feet. Actually, I don't have the question. I just wanted to let you know that today, on the auspicious day, I could manage to do Abhishek of my own deities, and we have dressed them nicely today. So just wanted to tell you that I did some service to their lordship.
Nice.
Do you want to take darshan, Guru Maharaj?
Yeah, you can give everybody darshan. Okay. I have my big screen in front of me, so I'll get a good darshan.
Okay, Guru Maharaj.
Rinda, can you highlight her, just her deities, just and put that on full screen?
Yes, Maharaj.
There you go. Green. We have Green CC Gornitai and Ladu Gopal.
Yes.
Beautiful. Oh, it has yellow charters with green dhotis. So
Yeah.
nice. Beautiful. Sisi Gornatai Ki Jai.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Nice. That's my first Vasant Pancami darshan.
Actually, Guru Maharaj, today is the day we have completed 25 years of our marriage as well.
Oh, good. We wish you another 25 years.
To do the service together, Guru Maharaj. Say that, complete.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Congratulations. That is, in this age of Kali, that is a great achievement.
And we are going to go to Mayapur to Sri Sri Devi Mataji as well.
When do you return to London?
23rd of February, Guru Maharaj. We're going on 18th to go and see Sri Devi Mataji. I mean, go and see Radha Madhav and Panchatattva.
Good, good. I'll see you in London when you get back.
What date you coming, Guru Maharaj?
Probably very close to the beginning of March.
Oh, okay, that's fine then. I will be here. Thank you.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone, for your wishes. And thank you, Guru Maharaj, for your blessings.
Gornitai Ki Jai.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we should conclude here.
Yeah.
And we'll see you all. Tomorrow is Sunday. And so we'll take it from there. Okay, and then we'll continue with our, actually this week coming up, it's very auspicious week. Let me see here. So on the 7th is Advaita Charya's appearance. On the 8th is Bhishtastami. On the 9th is Madhvacharya's. 10th is Ramanujacharya. The 13th is Varahadev. The 14th is Lord Nityananda. And the 16th is Narottam Das Thakur. So on those days, we'll be speaking about those personalities. Auspicious time of the year.
Okay. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Obeisances to all the devotees. Vanchakalpa Tarupascha, Kripa Sindhu, Devacha, Patitanam, Vyo, Vaishnavi, Namo, or Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Thank you all devotees for joining and your association. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, for your arranging this. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Happy wedding anniversary, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Vrinda, for hosting. And Sukhabaha, hearty congratulations from all of us on your wedding anniversary. It's a great feat